Okay, I can't resist, so please bear with me. Come back to the young and beautiful you. Beauty in a Bottle is written and directed by, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name, Antoinette Jadaone or Jadaone, I'm sorry. And this movie stars Asunta De Rossi, Angelica Panganiban, and Angeline Quinto. So Beauty in a Bottle is kind of an anthology comedy movie that tells the stories of three women who all become involved one way or another with this new beauty product called Beauty in a Bottle. So first you have Asunta De Rossi who plays Vilma, who's like this veteran person who works in an advertising agency, and she's trying to fight tooth and nail against this younger, fresher talent in order to take responsibility for the account for Beauty in a Bottle. Then you have Angelica Panganiban who plays Estelle, who's this actress who gained a lot of weight recently, who wants to be the face of Beauty in a Bottle. Then you have Angeline Quinto who plays Judith, who's this young girl who starts using Beauty in a Bottle because she wants to impress her rich boyfriend's family. Now, what really surprised me was that Beauty in a Bottle is actually a real thing. I mean, it's not called Beauty in a Bottle in like real life, but the product they show in this movie actually exists. So that's crazy. It's amazing that they were able to get permission for this. Now, when I call this movie a kind of anthology, I mean that as in this movie obviously does tell three separate stories, but they're all completely connected to each other. Like, some characters in one will show up in the other segments, and like as a whole, this thing really is kind of chronological and linear. But Beauty in a Bottle really is kind of a mixed bag at the end of the day because it is very messy, and I think it does miss as much as it hits. But it is sort of redeemed by its strong performances from its three leads and some really consistent direction. Beauty in a Bottle really benefits from how it's structured. Like I mentioned, it's three separate stories, but they're all definitely connected to each other. But this kind of structure really kind of enables each story to deliver its own message. But when you step back and look at the whole movie as a whole, it really does deliver another message. So that's where the satire comes out. When you look at this movie as a whole product, that's when you begin to see how kind of subversive it is about the culture of beauty in this country. This movie also has three extremely likable characters as the leads. They're all definitely caricatures of women with like insecurities about their looks, but at the same time, they're all completely relatable. Their imperfections aren't annoying or infuriating. That when you disagree with something they do, you kind of think to yourself, oh, that's actually how I would act also. And I really did think the acting was great in this movie. I mean, Asunta De Rossi, I thought not only was she really funny, but her sadness, the sadness she showed in her segment, I thought was very, very believable. I mean, more believable than the other two, I think. And she just becomes, again, like really likable. That when she shows up in the other segments, it's just so nice to see her there because she comes off as this very wise, very, kind of weathered, but she knows who she is kind of woman. And it's great that she really knew how to separate the comedy aspects of her performance from the drama aspects of her performance. So, but it still felt like it was coming from the same character. I thought Angelica Panganiban though was the best in this movie because she just threw herself into this role. She's really, really funny, I think. She just made every single moment just really fun to watch because her every little movement, her voice, her facial expressions really just kind of amplified every situation. And especially by the end of her story, when like something crazy happens, let's just say that the face she makes is really, really, she really sells it well. It actually surprised me to see Angelica Panganiban so adept at this physical comedy, and that's really, really impressive. In my opinion, Angeline Quinto in this movie was the least funny, but I'm not using that as a criticism against her. It's really because her segment I thought was the most serious, or at least it was the most, her character was the most insecure among the three. So it's not really a negative for her, but she was still able to be charming enough to make her insecurities kind of sympathetic. Again, you weren't annoyed at her. And I thought the way the director was able to tie her stories together was actually really well done. It felt very natural. It didn't feel like she was trying to force three different stories into one script. It really felt like this was planned out in a way. And one way she ties these stories together is she has the characters repeat certain rules to themselves. But the way these rules are used is that whenever a character repeats a rule to herself, it's kind of in a different context, so that's interesting. And I really did think she was able to, have such a consistent tone throughout this movie. It was really able to ride the line between this movie being its own thing, its own comedy, but at the same time being this real satire. So because the tone was so consistent, in my opinion, I thought the shift from comedy to drama within the movie was handled well enough so that the morals that people end up speaking out loud don't really feel tacked on. And in my opinion, the funniest moments from this movie really did come from the little things, like especially in Angelica Panganiban's section. Like there's a commercial director there who's trying to direct Estelle, and he's just really, really funny in his reactions. But the funniest thing for me was when Empress Shak, who's another actress who plays like a mean version of herself in this movie, whenever she enters a room, she's accompanied by this entourage, and there's a scene where she's about to leave a room, and it's clear that the hallway is completely empty, but then she still has that one guy in her entourage going, tabe, tabe, like, get out of the way, even if there's no one there. I mean, just those little things I thought were funny. But like I said, Beauty in a Bottle is a mixed bag, so, like, I think 50% of the jokes in this movie are really loud and over the top, and I don't think those connected at all for me. Because this movie is so good at kind of being a subtle parody or satire of sorts, having like loud jokes seems kind of counterproductive. It seems contradictory for what this movie is going for. Same goes with the drama. While I don't really mind them like having messages at the end, like the way they state these messages is so just blatant, and it's just all out there, and there's no creativity to it. So I thought that also kind of went against the whole satirical angle of the movie. And I watched like an interview with the director, and she mentioned how the movie was really supposed to be like over 2 hours long, but they ended up cutting a lot of it, and it's obvious that they cut a lot out of it because it's really obvious the way this movie just kind of jumps from one gag to the other with no coherence sometimes, especially in the first section with Asunta de Rossi. Like, I had no idea where that one was going at a certain point, and like you were introduced to certain characters or certain gags, and you had no idea where they came from, and just ended up feeling completely abrupt and rushed. But in the end, I will say that Beauty in a Bottle is an okay movie. Again, I'm trying to stay optimistic. I am just happy that we're actually experimenting with form in terms of narrative structure, and I'm really happy that we were actually able to use product placement intelligently for once. I'm looking at you, my little bossings. I'm looking at you. Anyways, that's my review of Beauty in a Bottle. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with it or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.